You dusted off Goldberg last night, huh?
Oh, I certainly did. I mean, it was fast, it was frantic, it was hard hitting. He might be 54 years old, but my goodness, he still tackles as hard as he did in his Atlanta Falcon days. I took about 3 tackles to the stomach. My ribs are messed up today, but I'm still WWE champion.
That's right. Goldberg did have a cup of coffee with the Atlanta Falcons back in the day. He did play some football, Goldberg.
I did indeed. I spoke to some of his former teammates, a few guys that used to play against him, and they described him exactly how he is. Still to this day, a very intense individual.
I mean, I guess, what is it like for you, as you know, and I want to get into your ascension into the person you are today, to look in the ring and that entrance last night? My gosh, there was more fireworks there than maybe we're going to see in the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. But there's Goldberg standing in the ring waiting for you. What is that like for you, Drew?
It's surreal. Like, I used to watch Goldberg wrestle when I was about 13, 14 years old. My brother and I, biggest wrestling fans in the world. And I never thought one day, 20-plus years later, I mean, I thought I'd be WWE champion one day. That was my dream. I never thought I'd be WWE champion standing across the ring from Bill Goldberg in 2021. It's an absolute fantasy situation for a lifelong wrestling fan like myself. But as a professional, I had to be up one of my former heroes as a kid, so I didn't feel so good about that, but I'm still WWE champion, so I feel really good about that.
Oh, I mean, my gosh, Drew, I mean, when Mahomes looks across the sideline and sees Brady on Sunday, he might have a similar moment, but he's going to have to take care of Brady like you took care of Goldberg. That's a fact. You know what I mean? That's what happens in competition.
That's right. And the current generation has got to prove their worth and show, they can top the prior generation. That's what it's all about, is showing I belong at the top. Not only could I hang with the previous generation, but, I could beat their butt to get in the ring with Drew McIntyre.
So before the WWE, you wrestled in the XSBW. Do you want to describe what that is for those who might not know, Drew?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, you've really done your research. The XSBW was my backyard wrestling federation when I was a kid. A lot of the listeners out there maybe wrestled with their friends in the back garden, had their own little wrestling leagues. I was one of them. My buddies and I would get together, put on our little wrestling matches, film it in a camcorder, think we were the greatest wrestlers in the world. I promised myself that footage would never see the light of day. But somehow WWE got their hands on it and they released it to the world.
What do you mean they got there? So the camcorder footage of you wrestling in the Extreme Scottish Backyard Wrestling, that's the league, correct? That, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct.
how'd they get their hands on this tape, Drew? How'd that happen?
Oh, my good friend in Scotland was the holder of all that footage, and he was working directly with them to get old pictures, old video clips of me for a documentary. Little did I know he was going to release everything to them.
So how did you get your start? How did that happen? How do you go from your backyard in Scotland to what we're seeing today, Drew?
Oof. It was quite the journey. When I wanted to, get to WWE, I'm from Ayr, Scotland, a country of 5 million people. WWE is a faraway American thing that nobody really from the UK had ever done. Nobody from Scotland had been signed to WWE ever. And I was going to do whatever it took to make my dream come true. I talked about it my whole life. I obsessed about it my whole life. I asked my mother to let me go to the only wrestling school in the UK, which was a 12-hour drive to where I grew up. She said no, age 12, no, age 13, age 14, and finally age 15. She said, okay, if you're keeping constant contact, I talked to the promoter, you go with your buddy, and you can start the dream. And I used to travel 24-hour round trip just to learn, how to wrestle. There was nothing in Scotland at the time, and that's what I did for the next year. As often as I could go, as often as I could afford, I would travel down 24 hours to that wrestling school, apply my craft, started wrestling in the independents, started the modern-day Scottish wrestling scene, and the whole time staying at school. Now, I went right through school all the way to college, got my degree in criminology, and that very year, my last year of university, I got signed by WWE, 21 years old, the first ever Scotsman signed.
So if you didn't get that signature by the WWE, what were you going to do with your criminology degree, Drew McIntyre?
As far as I'm concerned, there's no plan B. I was doing criminology because I've always been interested in that area, and I figured, man, wrestling's full of some really weird people, so I'm going to be able to profile them all and figure them all out if I get a degree in criminology. So it was all part of the wrestling plan.
So there was no plan. So I'm glad Plan A is unfolding still to this day, Drew. I'm pleased to hear that. So what's the craziest thing you did, either in your backyard or whatever, to that you wouldn't be able to attempt even now? As a wrestler, what's the craziest thing you've done?
Yeah, I mean, I used to jump off some high places. Our wrestling ring, just to clarify, was an old nasty-ass mattress on the grass. And in Scotland, the weather's not good, so usually it was raining, it was muddy, there was this nasty mattress. Very unhygienic to think back on it. I used to jump off of very high places and land on that very thin mattress. If I tried to do that today, I would not get back up. If I took a 16, 17-foot fall onto a mattress, I'd probably be getting taken out on a stretcher.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.